Hello and welcome to my retro watches, and here we are with another watch repair. Now you might recognise this watch if you've been a regular on the channel. I did an unboxing of 8 vintage watches that I bought in a job lot, and this was one of them. Now this is a small watch. I think it's only about 32 millimeters in diameter. It's very sort of military inspired. We've got a radium dial, or what looks like radium to me, and somebody at some point has reloomed the hands, so I have to handle this one with a little bit of care. The reason I'm doing this one is, well, I want to surprise somebody with it. I want to surprise a guy called Ivan. Ivan has become a good friend of mine, and he is the owner and founder of Vario watches, which sort of do military inspired watches from the past. So he recreated the trench watch with a modern twist. I'll leave a link to all of his stuff. We've become, like I say, good friends. Ivan is just a real decent guy who's an avid collector of vintage watches, and he's turned his passion into a business, and I'm hoping to meet him soon, and I thought I'd like to give him a little bit of a present, and this is the watch I've chose to try and get working for him. Now it's got a problem, and I think I know what the problem is straight away, and let's see if you can guess. It just whines and whines and whines and whines, and to me that is a broken mainspring. It has, however, it has this beautiful looking movement, Grosenbacher, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's a 17 jewel basic three-hander really, but the movement does look nice, and it looks very clean as well. So there's a good chance that's all it's going to be. So we'll strip this watch down, give it a service, get that, hopefully that broken mainspring out, and I'll show you how I source a mainspring, as long as I can find one for this one, with this caliber, because I do believe from the limited research that I've done is that this Grosenbacher made their own watch movements, but we'll find that out when I remove that balance. Right, so stick with us, let's strip the watch down. So just got to remove the hands. It's the hands that aren't really much of a problem on this watch, is just the handling of that dial. So radium, I think you all know the story of radium, but for those who don't, it is slightly radioactive. There is a great story of the radium girls, the ladies who used to paint the dials. When this stuff was all the rage, it used to have health properties, they thought. How wrong were they? Basically, it would, if ingested, eventually cause you probably some cancer and other various ailments. So as a result, some people don't touch radium. I'm always a little nervous, but then I try to take some precautions, those precautions being wearing finger cots, trying not to disturb the particles here, and I also wear a face mask just while I'm taking it apart. Just don't want to take any chances. Again, for the regulars, you know that I've already had cancer once, and I'm hoping that's my only dance with that illness. So yes, I'm going to just take the dial off very carefully. So here's the movement, and the first problem we've got, as soon as I removed the dial, well, that's the setting lever, that's fine. The setting lever spring has broken, so this arm should be here. It's a very common failure point on watches. However, I really don't fancy my chances of finding that, so it'll be resorting to the internet to see. But for the time being, I'll just strip it down anyway. Okay, I think I'm going to be in luck. I've just removed the balance, and you can see here it says 1080. So I researched Albert Grosenbacher, couldn't find much about it, but I found a very similar, if not the same watch, which was in a sale on it's not eBay, some website somewhere. Actually, a US spec watch, commanding quite a lot of money, but then it did have the army stamps on the case back, which obviously this one has nothing. And that listing basically says it is an ETA 1080. So Googled ETA 1080 and I'm getting pictures of exactly the same movement. So I'm pretty confident now that, one, if it is a mainspring, we can source that, and two, that setting lever also might be easy to obtain. Two nice jewel settings here. This one especially, it's got a little, like a claw almost holding it in. I will disassemble the other side before I remove them, and I'll remove them and clean them separately.
Isn't it annoying when you've just got a couple of threads left?
Well, that's not supposed to happen, is it? Always time to state my case. In case you're new to the channel, I am just a hobbyist watchmaker. I am not a professional. I'm just trying to learn how to do this by myself and bringing you guys along on my journey of exploration.
Nice little spring.
Very wedged in, that bit of metal on metal, never a good thing. Another shock setting for the escape, and on this particular one, because we're in front of it here now, I'll remove that. Absolute tiny screws they are. And it's got lost in the movement. I'll rescue that one when we take the bridge off now. Typical, isn't it? And there's the train. So look at all these scratches here. It's interesting because the screw heads are pretty highly polished and look good. So what's caused those? Difficult. It's nice that it's also got another setting on this bridge here, which I'm going to remove separately so I don't have any more mishaps with the screws. Now I can see why there's kind of scratches on it. It's quite stiff on there. Try and get it with these ones. There. That screw, I think, has fallen all the way through the movement, and it's in the bottom of the movement holder because I can't see it anywhere. One pesky little screw. So one main plate, one movement completely disassembled. Let's crack open the barrel and see if it is a broken mainspring. And it sure is. There you go. But from that, at least I can get the orientation as well, just to make sure you know which way it's going to go in. So off I go now to Cousins, see if I can find a mainspring and, more importantly, a setting lever spring. So we'll cut to the cleaning, and hopefully on the other side of that you'll see the new part. Here we are then on Cousins, and you can see ETA caliber 1080, and straight away here is a mainspring. So we are looking at 4 dimensions. They are basically the thickness of the spring, the length of the spring, the height of the spring, and the inner diameter of the barrel. So we've got one there, 15.95 plus VAT plus tax. Thing is, everything is in alphabetical order with Cousins. So if we scroll right down to the bottom, we're looking for the setting lever spring. Not available to order, and it's discontinued. So that's a bit of a boo for Cousins. However, I have a trick up my sleeve, a website that some of you might not know about. Some of you in the UK probably do, and we'll click over to that now. It's called Gleave & Co, and it says trade only, but it's the usual. I think it's to get around some laws about consumer rights and returns and things like that. So I've ordered from these people before, came on their website. We are looking at ETA setting lever springs, and conveniently they're all in caliber order, look. And we get to 1080, and it's a whopping £6. Again, it's plus 20% tax, but still absolutely nothing. It's funny how this one says generic. So I have in the past with some Omegas ordered setting lever springs, and they are just laser cut, you know, reproductions of the part. So we'll wait and see if this turns up in a blister pack. Hopefully it will. Right, if I go back, we can then look at ETA mainsprings. And again, we are looking at a part number. So see this GR2467. So if I go to Cousins have conveniently tell me the part number I need, which is GR4134. So we're in the twos there, aren't we? 4134. And we can check those dimensions. I already have. I know they're the same. £10 plus VAT. So that absolutely walks all over Cousins for price. Cousins is almost twice the price, I would imagine. There is a little bit of postage, but there you go, a winner. So we'll wait for those parts to turn up. Hopefully they are the right parts and I haven't shot myself in the foot, but we'll find that out very soon. So stay tuned while I wait for the postman. Okay, so while we wait for parts to arrive, we need to do some cleaning, and one part I've never shown of cleaning really is just a bit of pegging out. So this movement, on appearance at least, looks quite clean and crisp, but of course it isn't. This, I think, is dating, according to the movement that I've looked at now, between 1940 and 1950. So it is definitely old. Don't know the service history, of course. So it might look nice and shiny, but when you get deep down and close, you will find there's more dirt. So we use pegwood, which is just a type of wood, and in the holes we're going to put the wood in. I'm just going to turn it a bit and it cleans it out. Now it's hard to film that really, so I'm just going to cut to the microscope and show you what I can see, because then it's a little bit more clearer. So on the microscope we are looking at the center hole there, and you know, it looks all right. It's nice and round, which is the main thing. Again, here's the bit of pegwood. I've sharpened it. You would just get it in, stick it vertically, excuse my fingers, and we would just turn it or rotate it a bit. Now don't worry about the bits that it leaves behind. We can either Rodico those out, or of course when the watch goes into the cleaner, then we'll clean those parts away. So it's very good on jewels especially. So if you suffer with a loss of amplitude when you've built a watch, this can increase your amplitude. Just good health of all your jewels, and shining a light underneath it like I am here will highlight a lot of problems. So if we look at this one, this is the Escape. This is the thing that had the little clawed cover plate. Now I'm actually at a bit of a loss of this because I've never seen one before like it. So I've taken the claw part off, or the top jewel off, and the pivot would stick through there, and you can just about see there's a lot of dirt. What's intriguing about this jewel is you can see that it's kind of like tucked in. There's a moped driving past that's probably coming through the microphone. So yeah, so that is sort of tucked underneath there. It ends about there. I am really reluctant to try and turn this to see if I can remove it. Because I don't know how I would tuck it back underneath there, and I don't know whether it's supposed to be removed at all. But you can clearly see, hopefully, if I shine the light a bit more, perhaps get a different focus. Oh, actually I'll get a lot closer in. How about that? Okay, so there we go. We're a bit closer in and you can clearly see the smear on the top, and some of that is going to be replicated in the hole. So again, I'd get the pegwood and I'd carefully get it into that hole. I'm not going to do that on film because now the lens is too close for me to stick the pegwood upright. But we can carefully just give it a wipe on the top, and you will see that that grease and old oil is disappearing. So this is a good thing to do all round on both sides of the movement. See, these ones, they look quite clean. This one's hard to judge because of where the can't get a light under it. It's just where it is on the main plate, on the movement holder, sorry. So there you go. I've turned it, and you can see that in this one, again, there's a little bit of debris, but that will be moved away quite easily. That one's got a little burr in it. You can see that. That's pretty horrific. I'm not sure whether that's a screw hole. Probably is, rather than a bush for anything. But hopefully you get the point. So good cleaning helps. Equally, we can do this with some of the wheels. So you would inspect a wheel. So here we have that center wheel, and you want to be looking at all the teeth, making sure they're all there for a start, and that none of them look or appear to be damaged. You can try and look at the pivot, which is not easy again to film. So there's the pivot, and that looks quite worn, doesn't it? There's a bit of a groove in the middle, and that shouldn't really be there. Now I've just this second bought what's called a Jayco tool, which can help burnish those back. But on this video I will not be using it because I need a lot of practice first. And equally, what am I talking about? Because that dent there is where the cannon pinion goes. So it's a really bad example. That's typical me. Again, on the back, you want to look at the leaves here of this pinion. Really sorry for the shakiness. And you can see in here, look, see that black bit? Hopefully you can see. Let's try and get it focused again. So that's a bit of either dirt or even a bit of tarnish. At this moment I don't know. And what I will do with that is I'll run it through the cleaner first, and if it's still there afterwards, then I'm going to have to get in there with a bit of pegwood or even a toothpick and try and polish that out, because all this has got to be silky smooth. The smoother it is, the slicker the movement will run, the better amplitude you will get. So it's a bit of a shaky bit of tutorial there for you. It's something I do on most watches. I just tend not to film it because it just takes forever. It almost takes longer to inspect all the parts than it does to strip the movement down. So I will pack everything out now, we'll put it in the cleaner, and the next shots you're going to see is, well, hopefully the assembly of this watch. So the parts are in. Here we go, ETA, that is the setting lever, and it looks pretty convincing to me. And we've also got one generic mainspring. There we go as well. All the sizes are correct to what I've ordered. So let's get on and build the watch and fit that mainspring to start with. Okay, so fitting the spring. I've seen some people put oil on the bottom of the barrel. I've never done that. On an automatic watch you need to grease the walls, but on these, as far as I'm concerned, you don't put anything in. There's a little indent here, and that's where the bridle's going to catch to hold the tension when it gets fully wound. So you have to look at the mainspring itself. The blue indicates normally that it's that side up, and rare occasions you might have them that go that way. There's some Seikos that do that. So I'm just going to look and kind of line that up a little bit. My thoughts have always been that it will find its way into the right spot as you wind. There we have it, one mainspring fitted. So just got to put the arbor in, but I'll save that. Let's carry on building the movement. So with a movement like this, it is best to try and oil some of these jewels now. And the reason for that, certainly this particular one here, is for the escape wheel. And I know from experience that if you leave them out, when you actually install the escape wheel, the chances are the pivot will go further through the movement, and then it won't fit properly, and it will drive you crazy for hours because you wonder why it's not working, thinking the pivots are broken or something, and really it's just because you haven't fit this jewel. I've already done the balance one here, and we'll use the auto oiler for that, but this one I'm just going to oil like I've done now. And I'm going to introduce a new tool. It's not really a new tool, I've had these before, always forget them, that's the trouble. It's a sticky
picker-upper. So it's just got a little bit of something on the end. And you can pick up jewels like this, and you can turn them over, and if you're careful enough and come in with a bit of pegwood, not like that.
There, you can kind of fit it. Now the movement did jump out the movement holder as well while I did that, so I'm going to have to just tighten that up and put that screw in. So flip the movement over now to build the train, and like I say, first thing I need to do is oil where the balance will be. Now my hands are a little bit shaky, and that is not through nerves today, but we have got now an allotment in the UK, and I've been working on a basic allotment. For people who don't know, it's just a big area of ground we've been allowed to have, and we can grow our vegetables and things like that on it, and it's really overgrown. So I've been working all day, and my hands are a little bit twitchy because they haven't done that much exercise in a very long time. So I'm just putting Mobius 9010 for the centre wheel there. It's reminiscent of a Seiko really, this one, because just try and put a little bit of oil on the top of there, because it has its own little plate, which is this one, if you remember, was quite difficult to get off. Now again, this has got a jewel setting on it. Now I have taken the jewel out, cleaned and replaced. It doesn't really do anything, well, when it's removed, that is. So it's just a case of coaxing it back into position again here, and then we can oil that centre jewel as well. Now we're going to drop the escape in. And before I forget, better 90-10. This view down that you're looking at on the camera is on my microscope. It's the one I did a review on, the Link Micro. And it's alright, it's been good for filming on, but I really still can't get used to trying to build a movement on it. So on this particular occasion, I'm more using my loop than I am looking at the screen on the microscope, and I also can't get that escape to sit where I want it to. And would you believe it, it's the escape that's not in its jewel. Oh, would you believe it? It's finally gone in. That, you can't really see the escape, I don't think, in this light. That was incredibly difficult, and it shouldn't be. It's just 3 pivots. And then the same trick with this one. I think I got away with that. There we go. So there's some smudges around here, and that's just where I've roddy coated it, and it's left a little bit of a film look.
I'll get this screw in and take another look at that.
There's also a few hairline scratches. Now I don't know whether that's from me messing around for ages trying to get that balance. Sorry, that escape wheel in its pivot. So a bit of D5. Now if you're regular to the channel, you will have seen that I normally fit the barrels quite early on, but I've had a recent visit to a new friend who's a professional watchmaker, and he gave me a couple of tips, and one of them was when you're working on these sort of two bridge movements that it's best to leave the barrel out and get the train bridge on first, because that way you've got more access to the wheels to make sure they line up with the pivots. So passing on that little tip bit there, and we can see that works fine. So this is the hole for the set-in lever screw, so just put a bit of oil in there. It's a part that can be often forgotten to fit. I think I said that in maybe my last video, but it's true. And then by contrast, these bridges are considerably easier to fit. And some D5, just a touch in there. Left hand thread for that one. Nice reassuring sound. Okay, right. Pallet fork, and then we've got to mess around with the balance to oil the jewel. I'll show you that in just a moment. Right, I don't like the way that goes on. It's got 2 location pins on the cock, which means you've got to put a lot of downward pressure in, and I can't see that the escape is in its jewel anymore. Well, it's not. The pallet fork even. I keep calling it the escape. There we go. That again was a bit fiddly. And again, some of you eagle-eyed people, and I know you're out there, will have noticed that when I oiled the pallet fork, that I oiled the wrong jewel. And I did notice this off camera, and I've had to clean it and put it back in again. And the movement has got some power going through the train. Great. Okay, balance. So if all goes well, the movement might fire up. And again, these location pins are so tight. There you go, look, it's wanting to go, but I can't push that on enough. A bit off camera there. Hey, so it's really nice to see that. Definitely really nice to see, because it's been a bit of a struggle. I don't know whether it's just, again, because I've been working too hard today and I'm still decided to film. Yeah, so balance. As you can see, it's got this set up again, which means I've got to take the balance off, take the actual hairspring out of the collet here, in order to then be able to get access to that jewel and clean it and oil it. So I've had to put it back on the movement because I need to undo the stud screw. Okay, so I need to take it off now, and then I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I've taken the balance off with the hairspring attached. Basically do the stud screw, and I have to turn this, which is guarding the regulator pins there. Now I've got access to these 2 screws. So I basically put that away somewhere safe. I'll unscrew these 2, and then the other side of the jewel will drop out and we can give it a clean. So here we are, the parts are clean. Now you could oil this jewel now and rebuild it all, and that would be fine. Trouble is trying to get those 2 holes to line up with those 2 holes, certainly with the camera and everything else in the way. I'm going to just use my auto oiler afterwards through the hole there. I think it makes a lot more sense. I much prefer your conventional Incablock settings and things where you can access them from the top of the balance rather than taking them all apart like this. Because as you'll see, it is a little bit of guesswork. I mean, I can use the microscope to my advantage now. But, see, this is the hard part, isn't it? You can get that on there. And now I can oil that jewel. That puts a precise drop exactly where I need it. So I've just got to put the hairspring back on and the balance, and then we can attach it back to the movement. And the balance back on, and I'm getting a complete and utter snowstorm, which is pretty disheartening. I mean, okay, the watch was dead on arrival and now it's got a heartbeat, but my goodness, I've got to do some heart surgery to figure out what is going on there. We've got serious beat error, bad rate, very low amplitude with a brand new mainspring. It can only be hairspring. And here is my point under the microscope. So you have to look really at the regulator, which is the bit sort of sticking out towards the top right, and you can kind of see that the coils are a bit too close together, and in actual fact where the regulator pins are, one of the coils is touching. So I'm now just moving the regulator itself to see if the hairspring moves, but fortunately it does at least stay in the same position. So we've got well, a tangled hairspring somewhere. So now I've got to strip it all back down again and have a look at that. And here we are. That's under the microscope and very straightforward. You can see that it's just touching where the beginning is of the terminal curve or thereabouts. So I'm going to set that up on the microscope and see if I can adjust it. Okay, here we are under the microscope, and yes, you can quite clearly see the problem. The final curve here needs to be adjusted somewhere around here is what I would think. Now I really want to be on my stereoscope to do this, but I'm going to try and attempt it on the digital one by just trying to pinch it there a little bit with the tweezers. If that doesn't work, then I'll have to go to plan B. I don't think I've ever adjusted a hairspring on camera, and it's not something for the faint-hearted. No, I need better peripheral vision, and ideally need to hold it with another pair of tweezers, I think. I was hoping it was a little bit of a kink, and as I say, if you can get in there, as it's tight. Got a different pair of tweezers here, and sometimes you can be just lucky and just crimp the kink a little bit. But no. The other concern is if you look at the stud here, it has a taper pin. Clearly this has been adjusted, and I would never be able to get that out, I don't think, and back in again, should I need to. So we'll see. Let's get the other microscope, see if I can set up recording on that. So there's a movement, and it looks a lot better. The terminal curve over here is okay. Very nervy doing it on camera, not the most, and only using one eye, despite the fact my other eye is not very good. So I'm just going to quickly mount that up. It clearly needs cleaning again, but I'll get it on the balance cock and just test it to start with and see where we're at. Okay, excuse the wires and the mess, but here we go. This is the moment of truth, and seriously, I'm quite nervous. So lift angle, I think is 52. We'll just set it at that for now. See if we've got an improvement. Oh, yes, yes, we have. Look, so we are getting, there's a bit of noise. Maybe if I just turn it down a bit, it might be me talking. We're now getting at least parallel lines, amplitudes. Okay, still a bit more improvement in that, I feel. Beat error, well, it's got a fixed stud. I can try and adjust that slightly by moving the collet. Whether I'll do that on or off camera, I don't know. So yes, this is, well, fantastic news, really is. I am absolutely buzzing, to be honest with you, because Hairsprings, as much as that was just a small manoeuvre, with all the cameras in the way, just made it a little bit more difficult, and I don't have a great success rate with Hairsprings. Just the one jewel on this side, just here. Some 9010, we can't do this one. That is the pallet fork, I think. The D5 for the cannon pinion. And I've pre-greased the pinion there. And the yoke. Bit more blue grease. Too much on my oiler, as you can see. And the peripheral vision on this microscope is terrible. But there we go. Managed to get in there. Okay, looking at that, I think, almost sure I must have the yoke the wrong way round. There we go, mistakes as they happen. I'm not looking back at my footage or photos, and I should be really. But I can just see that sort of long, how that's stuck to it, look, this long bit here, which says to me that's how the spring sits. There we go. Okay, one spring in, get in there now. And now we find out whether the replacement setting lever spring is correct or not. And that looks a pretty good fit, doesn't it? There you go. Perfect. Drop the hour wheel on. And then we have a little cover plate. And that has 2 tiny screws. And then we're good. Now we can just check the action. Excuse my fingers, no finger cuts. But yes, that's winding fine. So, okay, I'm going to try and improve the regulation. Wish me luck, because I'm going to need every ounce of it. Right, I've got to give the collet, hairspring collet, a little nudge, and this is a trick I learned from Joe, the naked watchmaker, because I saw him do it on a recent video. Solved a problem I've had for years. That is just to hold the balance on a balance tack with some roddy coat, and then that way you can get to the collet sort of fairly easily. You've still got to be a bit careful. And I'm just using an oiler. And that is a small adjustment, and hopefully might be all I need, but then again I might need to do another 2 or 3 of those. So I'm going to put it on and see what it looks like on the time grapher. So folks, we have a bit of a disaster. I've now put the hands on, as you've just seen. Came to put the second hand on, wouldn't fit. Found that a bit strange. And what you're looking at there, right in the very center of the picture, is a broken pivot on that wheel. And that is a major problem. And the reason it's a major problem is that Ivan, I'm meeting him, he's come all the way from Singapore to the UK, and I'm meeting him in just a few days time, and I have not got time to find a replacement wheel in order to supply him the watch with a hand. So I'm absolutely gutted after all the work I've just put into this. It is a real shame, so I might have to just show him the watch and tell him I'm going to send it in the post when it's done, because it's really sort of ruined the surprise now. What a shame. But I don't know how that's happened. It can only be of when I took the hands off, because, well, I can't see any of the reason the hand was on to start with. I've looked inside the tube of the second hand and it's not there either. So it's just one of those, really, really unfortunate. I should have picked it up in my inspection, but for whatever reason I didn't, and even more frustrating. Okay, so here we go. This is the fruits of my labour. That hairspring tweak, the moving of the collet, and we've got a much more acceptable beat error, and we've got a fairly acceptable rate. Amplitude is great, but then that's probably down to the brand new mainspring that is held within the movement. So at this point I could happily end the video and say, look at me, haven't I done really well? I've taken a broken watch, I've got it running, sorted out some hairspring work, fantastic. Well, yes, I'd like to say that. However, you've just seen that we had the problem with the second hand, and I'm pretty mortified about that. And now this doesn't end here, because we have serious positional error. It's okay, dial up, dial down, but when we go to pendant up, you will see now the trace will gradually drop and drop and drop, and it drops to about minus 40 seconds a day. And I had this on the last watch. It's very perplexing. I've taken the balance off. I've checked the end shake everywhere. I don't think it's a component within the watch. Personally, my hunch is it's the hairspring or even the balance wheel. You will have noticed that I commented on the stud and the pin that was holding in the hairspring on the stud. That certainly seems to be not standard. I think it's been tampered with, and the hairspring is also slightly longer. I've never seen the tail hanging out the stud the other end as long on any watch before. So my assumption could be that another watchmaker at some point in time has changed it, and perhaps they've only changed the hairspring. I don't know. You're supposed to change the hairspring and the balance at the same time because they are poised together. I've just turned it now to pendant down, and you'll see that it crashes even worse. So yes, is it my problem? Is it my fault? Is it lack of skill? I know how far I can push myself, and this is the joys of hobbyist watchmaking. Some watches are brilliant, get you really motivated, think you're invincible and great, and then you get ones like this with lots of problems. So a great challenge, but the end result certainly right now is not desirable. Now, had I not had to meet Ivan in just a few days, I would be now rapidly trying to source the fourth wheel and also a new balance, so that I could at least give him a watch that I would be happy with. So I might still try and source those parts anyway, but there you go. That's as much as I'm going to say on this right now. Let's show you the finished watch anyway, and hopefully you will enjoy that. Here's the watch at the start of the video, all unloved and a complete non-runner, and here is the monumental transformation that I have bestowed upon it. It's now missing its second hand, and the case is looking a little bit cleaner. Now, incidentally, the case is plated, so I've only been able to clean it, and along with polywatching the crystal, but I'm really upset that I've not been able to source the wheel in time to be able to fit the second hand before I meet Ivan. He's travelled all the way from Singapore, and this might be the only opportunity I get to meet him. So it is what it is. That is hobbyist watchmaking for you. You get the highs and the lows, and we've certainly had that in this video. But look at the finished watch. I think this was well worth saving. I'd not heard of Optima until this came in the job lot that I bought, and I'm really glad that I decided to take this one on. It's been an interesting ride. I think it's been a bit more of a technical video this time. We haven't just taken a watch apart and put it back together again. We've had to problem solve. I've had to sort parts. I've had to actually decipher the fact that it was an ETA movement because it was no clues to tell me that. Fix the hairspring as well. Okay, we've got the positional error and we've got the pivot that I've broken. But yes, a proper journey, and for that I really do hope that I've earned a like from you, and possibly a subscription if you're new, and of course leave your comments below. So yes, this watch is great. It's very small, of course, 32mm. Here it is on my wrist, and yeah, it looks a little bit small, but then that's the watches of the day. That's the sizes they were normal for a man, and I like them. I have no problem wearing these small watches, certainly when you've worked on them, because you feel a little bit of pride. But of course, this one isn't for me. This one is for Ivan. And I'm filming this now, or narrating this now, after I met him. I actually met him this evening, and I showed him the watch, said I've made this for you, and told him the problems, and he wants to take it as he is. He's really likes the watch, of course, and then has said, well, basically that's part of its new history. You've broken that, and it'll stay like that now, and he'll enjoy it. So with that in mind, all I can do is end the video with Ivan saying a few things to the camera.
I've been presented this watch by Michael. Lovely watch. Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Enjoy it.
Yeah, I will.
Hopefully it's going to keep running. That's the
If it doesn't,
if it does, it's a long
I'll
way
send
back.
it back.
Okay, it's
I
been
love
an
it. Thank
absolute
you.
pleasure. Thank you.